Hello guys, welcome back to our YouTube channel. In this video we are gonna see, what if Naruto awakens the lost legacy and restore the Uzumaki clan? Part 2. If you want more awesome fan fiction like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. So without wasting any time, let's get into the video. Why am I not surprised? Naruto ground out as he leaned back against the wooden pole, staring at the sky above. Here he was with Sasuke and Sakura at the third training ground. The place where Team 7 had officially formed. And the place where Kakashi-sensei had told them they'd be meeting today. As per usual, it was well over an hour past when he said they'd meet and the man was nowhere in sight. How's this fair? He tells us to meet him and keeps us waiting every day. Sakura yelled in frustration. Sasuke meanwhile remained silent as he leaned against one of the three logs sticking up from the ground. Naruto was glad to see that a night at home seemed to have done Sakura some good. She seemed to be back to her energetic old self for the most part. He'd been worrying about her. I wish he didn't have us meet in different places every time. Then I could set something up to get back at him for leaving us hanging, Naruto growled, crossing his arms before he grinned at Sakura. Think he'd agree if we invited him for ramen or something? I bet I could come up with something good if I put my mind to it. I wouldn't try it, Sakura answered back. After seeing what he's like in the field, you get the feeling he was just humoring us with that eraser thing. I doubt he'd really fall for something like that. Naruto clicked his tongue. Yeah, you're probably right. Ugh, next time I'm bringing a book or something, Sakura growled, hands on her hips as she began to tap her foot. Well, isn't that a coincidence? I happen to have brought a few books for you. Kakashi's voice rang out, causing the genin to look to the river behind them. Kakashi appeared in a burst of smoke, giving them his eye smile and a wave. Sorry I'm late, I had to help a kid find his lost pet. Your excuses suck, sensei. Naruto deadpanned while Sakura raised a trembling fist in the silver-haired man's direction. Then what he said clicked and she was caught flat-footed. Wait, you've got a book for me? She asked, looking at him in confusion. Among other things, Kakashi replied as his sole visible eye roamed over his students. I feel I may have taken a bit too much of a laissez-faire approach to training you. His gaze settled on Naruto. In all honesty, I should have taught you the tree climbing exercise and more, quite a bit before we took that mission to Wave. Then I smiled again and pulled out a small sheet of paper, holding it between two fingers. So, from here on out, we'll be taking fewer missions and doing more training. Kakashi-sensei. What's that? Sakura asked, clearly as lost as he was on what a sheet of paper would do for them. Oh, this is known as chakra induction paper. Kakashi told them. It's used to test one's elemental affinity. Well, you can learn how to use any element, everyone has one they have a natural inclination for. That one will be more powerful and easier for them to use. All you have to do is channel your chakra into this paper. And at that moment, the paper suddenly crinkled in his hand. And voila. How it reacts tells you the holder's affinity. Mine's lightning, so the paper wrinkles. With a water element, it gets wet. Fire, it burns to ash. Earth, it turns to dirt, and with wind, it'll split in two. Cool. So you're going to use that to figure out what kind of jutsu to teach us? Naruto asked excitedly. That more than made up for him being late. That's right. Kakashi nodded. Oh, incidentally. A little tidbit you might want to know. You need to have mastered a minimum of 2 elements to qualify to become a jonin. A bit far off, but it's something to keep in mind if you don't want to stop a chunin. Now, let's get started. The jonin held out 3 sheets of paper. The genin stepped forward, joining Kakashi at the river's edge, and took 1 slip of paper each. They paused, staring at their sheets for a few moments, before one by one channeling chakra into them. Sasuke's was first, burning to ash. Sakura's crumbled away while Naruto's split in half. Well, looks like Naruto and Sakura have the wind and earth affinities. Sasuke's fire is no surprise, that's the norm for the Uchiha clan. Kakashi noted. It's fitting from what I've seen of your styles. Wind is an offense-oriented element, known for cutting and piecing foes, though you can also project solid walls of wind for defense. It's also very effective when combined with fire. Wind will feed the flames and intensify them. Earth, on the other hand, is pretty balanced. You can make blunt force or piercing stones, summon walls of earth, and traverse the ground for sneak attacks. It offers a wide range of possibilities. Oh yeah. We're going to kicking ass and taking names. Naruto grinned widely, punching an open palm. But before we start on that, we'll be working on improving your chakra control. Huh? Again? Yes, proper control of your chakra is important. In fact, it's likely why you kept failing in the academy. Kakashi replied. Wait, what? Naruto asked in confusion. Kakashi nodded. The more chakra you have, the more difficult it is to control. While it gives you a lot of stamina, you waste a lot of extra energy on techniques. Worse, some techniques, like the clone jutsu, for example, and gain jutsu in general, require refined chakra control or have pretty strict requirements. Overload them, and they won't work at all. His gaze then turned to Sasuke. Sasuke possesses an exceptional amount of chakra for your age. He then turned to Naruto. But by any standards, the amount of chakra you possess are enormous. For a brief moment Naruto was excited to hear Tenten that withered on the vine as he remembered why he had so much chakra. Sakura raised a brow beside him before she turned to her sensei. So, the reason Naruto kept failing the academy's test is that he couldn't control his chakra well enough to use the clone jutsu. Because he has so much of it? Sakura asked, seeming to wonder how much chakra he had for that to be the case from how she was looking at him. That's right. He likely would have passed a normal way had someone thought to take him aside and help him refine his chakra control. Kakashi replied. But, I've thought of a way to take advantage of that. Eh? Naruto, have you ever noticed that you remember things you shouldn't when you use the shadow clone jutsu? Huh? Naruto hummed in thought, crossing his arms as he racked his brain for what his sensei could mean. Okay, maybe a demonstration is in order. And with that, he created a single shadow clone that immediately began to walk off into the nearby forest. Naruto, create a shadow clone of your own and have it follow mine. The blonde did so, and they waited. So, what are we with Tinga? Naruto blinked as thoughts came rushing to him. Sasuke frowned while Sakura looked curious. What is it? She asked. My clone beat Kakashi in rock paper scissors. Right, Kakashi said. You see, when a shadow clone disperses, no matter how that is, its remaining chakra and all of its memories return to the user. Naruto probably would have noticed had he used the clones in any way other than having them work or fight alongside him. If my theory is right, then this should apply to accumulated experience as well. Meaning, if you have 5 shadow clones working with you on learning a new skill, you should progress 5 times faster. Naruto began to raise a cheer in excitement. But there's a catch. That caused Naruto to stop. The mental fatigue will carry over too. And if you spread your chakra too thin, you won't be able to accomplish anything. You're probably the only one here who can take full advantage of this training, and it'll probably leave you barely on your feet. Well, I'm up for it. This was great. With this, he'd catch up to Sasuke in no time. Actually, now that I think about it, Sakura might be able to make use of this too. Kakashi put a hand on his chin. Eh? All three were surprised. Even Sasuke raised his brows before looking at Sakura in confusion. Huh? Sakura seemed perplexed. She then began frantically waving her hands in front of her. Whoa, what are you talking about, sensei? I don't have that much chakra. You don't, Kakashi affirmed, and Sakura stopped moving. In fact, with the amount of chakra you have, I'd normally recommend you not use this jutsu at all, and certainly not for training. The pink-haired girl seemed to deflate at that. But as I said, I have some reading material for you. Or maybe homework would be a good way to put it. With that, Kakashi pulled out a scroll from his flak jacket and kneeled down, unfurling it on the ground before placing a hand on the seal at the center of the paper. In a burst of smoke, several books and scrolls appeared. Sakura, looking at your talents, I believe you have excellent potential for medical ninjutsu, as well as gain jutsu. Really? Yes. Both require fine chakra control, which you seem to have a gift for. The latter requires you have a deep understanding of chemicals and the body, which should be right up your alley given your academic record. Now, I'm no specialist, but I can help you with gain jutsu. Medical ninjutsu, on the other hand, is not something I have any experience in. And quite frankly, it would take too long for you to explore on the deadline I'm looking at. At his Genin's quizzical gaze, he added, more on that later. Anyway, well, medical ninjutsu might be out of the question now, the knowledge that goes with it. Anatomy, pressure points, and with them where and how to hit someone for maximum effect, how to identify and create poisons and antidote test it, could be helpful. Hence, your homework. With that, he gestured to the books before him. I want you to study these while at home. The shadow clone jutsu might be useful on that front, since you'll only be studying and won't use any chakra. His voice became harsher as his gaze sharpened, carrying an authority they hadn't heard outside of the battles with Zabuza. Let me stress that you are not to use this technique outside of studying. Not in training and definitely not in the field. And don't use more than one clone. With the amount of chakra you have, you'd run the risk of dangerous levels of chakra exhaustion. Sakura shivered slightly, and Naruto didn't blame her. He knew enough to know chakra exhaustion was dangerous stuff. Don't worry. I understand, sensei. Good. Well, I guess I'll be teaching you that technique then, Kakashi said with a shrug. Alright. We'll be working on a more advanced chakra control exercise for the first hour of training. And with that, he turned away and walked towards the river. Naruto's eyes widened as he stepped on the water's surface and walked across it as if it was solid ground. Oh yeah, he remembered his sensei and Zabuza fighting on the water the first time. They were going to learn that awesome. You'll be learning to walk on water for the next hour. Afterward, we'll be working on your taijutsu skills. Naruto, I want you to create 8 clones. I want 3 to accompany you in this exercise. 4 will get started on wind element training, and the last will be brushing up on things you clearly need a refresher course on from the academy. Let's see how well you handle that before we consider moving on to adding to that number. Naruto nodded and did as he was told. In a burst of smoke, 8 doppelgangers appeared around him. In short order, they were all working on their assigned tasks. The 3 genin stood at the edge of the river, looking determined. Okay, now I want you to run onto the water, using your chakra to repel it and keep from falling into the river. You're going to feel the difference between this and tree climbing very quickly. The shifting surface of the water will force you to adjust your chakra by the moment, or you'll fall in. Stop and focus on keeping above the water when you feel you have to, but try to get as far as you can, okay? Anjo. The 3 immediately took off running. The moment Naruto's foot touched the water, he immediately knew what Kakashi had been talking about. He could feel the way it moved under his feet, the way his soles would waver between standing solidly and being dragged under by gravity. And the whole thing threw his sense of balance out the window. He made it 3 steps before he had to stop, holding out his arms to keep upright as he struggled to maintain control. Sasuke made it a lot farther. 8 steps before he came to a near standstill. Even so, he kept moving, fighting to keep standing before taking 1 quick step forward. Sakura made it even farther, though she was forced to walk. She even managed to stay steady. Almost. Naruto lasted about 10 seconds before he slipped into the water with a splash. 5 hours later, training for the day had been complete and the 3 genin were on the ground. Naruto had fallen onto his butt and leaned back, propping himself up with his hands, his shoulders heaving as he panted heavily. He was sore all over. Kakashi had hit him hard whenever he'd made a mistake. And he'd made a lot of mistakes. Sakura was lying on her back a ways away, staring listlessly at the sky where she'd fallen at the end of her own training session. Sasuke sat on one of the posts, an arm on his knee. He had mostly recovered, the only sign of his own training being the scuffles on his clothes. Kakashi's taijutsu session had been grueling. He'd had them come at him one by one, making sure to hammer in every flaw in their fighting style. Naruto had been the last, and his fighting style had overall needed the most work. Kakashi had said Naruto fought more like a brawler than a trained shinobi, not really even having a fighting style at all. Still, he had the trained reflexes shinobi were known for and strength and speed to make up for it. He winced as he looked over at Sakura, lying on the ground. Sakura didn't even have that much going for her. Oh, she fought with a style but it was pretty clear she hadn't done much practice and her physical abilities were well, Kakashi had said subpar. That was the kindest way he could put it. She'd gotten the worst of this first session. Alright, I think I have a good idea of what you need to work on, Kakashi said, nodded to himself. Good work. Let's call it a day. Wait a minute, Kakashi-sensei, Naruto interjected, his breathing starting to calm. What is it? Naruto took a breath and rose to his feet, looking at his sensei with determination. I was wondering, can you teach me sealing jutsu? Ah, you want to try out your clan's art? Kakashi asked rhetorically before thinking about it. Well, I'm not sure you're suited for it. Just because your clan excelled in it doesn't necessarily mean you will. Naruto deflated a bit at that. But we won't know until we try. I was just waiting for you to ask, to be honest. Now the blonde looked up in excitement. It's a bit more involved, so we'll handle it more like a tutoring session. I'll come by your place a few hours after we've trained, give you time to cool off, and then we'll see what you can do. Keep in mind there's going to be a lot of reading involved, but I'll try to make more practical exercises since you seem to learn better by doing. Thanks, Kakashi-sensei. Iruka made his way up the familiar stairs that led to Naruto's apartment. The sun had made it 3/4 of the way across the sky to the horizon. The Chunin figured that by now, Naruto would be back from training or a mission. He'd been worried about his former student after what he heard happened on his should have been an A rank mission. That had surprised him, especially when he'd learned that they'd found out the client had lied midway to wave and kept going anyway. He'd wanted to tear into Kakashi for that one. Taking experienced genin on a B rank or even A rank mission was one thing, but green ones who'd never been on a mission that wasn't basically a chore. But he hadn't. He was sure that anything he had to say, the third had already said. The fact that he'd learned that Naruto had had his first kill was a far more pressing concern on his mind. Reaching the blonde's apartment, Iruka knocked on the door. Naruto, you there? He waited for a few seconds, then he heard the latch click. Naruto opened the door and smiled up at his former sensei. Hey, Iruka-sensei. Good to see you. Iruka chuckled. Same to you, Naruto. He then looked past the blonde and his eyebrows rose. What had once been something of a pigsty had now decently clean. Not perfect, but a vast improvement on what was there before. The trash had been picked up, no signs of leftover food, the sink was clear. Looks like someone finally decided to do some picking up around the house. Naruto chuckled, smiling widely as he rubbed the back of his head. Yeah, it was kinda gross, huh? This was a good sign. The blonde seemed to be in high spirits, as usual. The scarred Chunin knew Kakashi would help him through processing it and that some time had passed, but he knew from personal experience that this kind of thing lingered with you. Plus, it had been a while since he saw his favorite student. Well, I'm glad to see you took some initiative on it, Haruka replied before pointing his thumb behind him. You up for some ramen? You know it. Ah, Lord Third told you about the Uzumaki clan. Haruka asked, blinking in surprise as he and Naruto sat at the blonde's favorite ramen stand. You knew, Naruto responded in shock. The instructor could only rub the back of his head sheepishly. Ah, sorry, kind of slipped my mind. People don't really like talking about the Uzumaki clan after what happened. He really only knew vague details. What he did know, everyone who was an active shinobi at the time felt they shouldn't have missed the attack that destroyed the ill-fated village. They considered their failure to save them a disgrace and didn't like being reminded of it. It wasn't a taboo subject, but it was close enough that it wouldn't occur to most to bring it up. Himself included. He couldn't help but feel a bit ashamed of that. Learning he had a heritage to live up to might have lit a fire in the boy and compelled him to train harder. Yeah, the old man told me that, Naruto said, trailing off and staring into the steaming bowl before him. Haruka's face fell. He imagined it was a mixed feeling, finding out he came from a big family with a legacy to live up to after being on his own for so long. But at the same time, he found out they were gone and that he wasn't likely to meet any of them. Feeling now was as good a time as any to broach the subject, Haruka asked, so, how are you holding up? After the mission, I mean. Naruto flinched slightly, clearly guessing what he meant. Alright, I guess. From what Kakashi-sensei told me, anyway. He looked to his former sensei. Is it normal to have nightmares after all this time? Yeah, Haruka trailed off before asking. Want to talk about it? Naruto proceeded to give him a more detailed account of what happened during the mission. The Chunin grimaced as he thought about it. Yeah, he can definitely understand seeing red at the death of a comrade. He knew the blonde must be beating himself up after finding out the boy faked it and meant to spare them all along. Given who his master was, you couldn't have known he'd do that. I mean, he followed someone who killed 100 academy students when he was just a boy. I know, Naruto responded. Haruka sighed. But knowing that doesn't make you feel better. Yeah, I understand. There was a moment of silence before Naruto spoke again. I don't know when I felt worse. When I really realized I'd killed that guy when he'd only faked killing Sasuke, or when I thought Sasuke was dying in my arms because I'd been stupid. Just be thankful your teammate's still alive, Haruka advised. That situation could have turned out any number of ways, some a lot worse than others. Did he know? There was a moment of silence before Haruka broke it. So, how have things been going with your team since then? Naruto smiled. Pretty good, I guess. Sasuke's the same as always, but I think he talks even less than he did before. Sakura hasn't yelled at me for the last few weeks. Kakashi-sensei's been training us harder. He really worked us into the ground today, we were all beat when we went home, but he's still late every day. It's crazy. What could he be doing that takes so much time? I don't know him that well, but he's got a reputation for being late whenever he can afford to be. My suggestion, take something light you can do that won't tire you out for whatever he's got in mind to every meeting. Haruka said. Naruto frowned before shrugging. Better than waiting around for Kakashi-sensei every day, and with that, he went back to his bowl, drinking down the last of it. He sighed as he set it down, only for another to be placed in front of him. Huh? Figured you could use another. You usually go for a few rounds. Tucci said, smiling at his favorite customer. I happened to overhear you had a rough time of it, so this one's on the house. Thanks, old man Tucci. Haha, don't mention it. The old man replied with a hearty laugh. And don't shy away if you're feeling down, okay? Am added. We may not be shinobi, but we're here if you need to talk, okay? Haruka smiled, thankful for the reminder that Sim cared for the blonde. Sakura looked at herself in the mirror, her eyes determined. She thought long and hard on her father's advice, on what she needed to work on and make up for. There was still a lot she needed to figure out. But she had a good starting point. The first thing that had come to her mind was her team. So far, she hadn't really contributed anything besides taking up some of the work on D-rank missions. She'd done a bit to help Naruto when he was dealing with the aftermath of the battle on the bridge, but that was massively outweighed by how she'd put him down before. She'd never really done anything for Sasuke. And if they were to go on any dangerous mission now, even an actual C rank, she knew she'd probably just slow them down. That had to change. Being there for them would be tough. Sakura didn't even know where to begin, but it was easy enough to not yell at Naruto for every little thing. Of course, he hadn't actually done anything to annoy her little bit still. She just had to keep in mind to be kinder and more considerate to Naruto and more supportive of both of them. Really supportive, not just toadying when it came to Sasuke. And she needed to stop being dead weight. And that meant she needed to train. Kakashi had taken to teaching them how to fight more effectively and, wow, had he hammered into her head how much work she needed. But it wouldn't be enough to just train her skills, she needed to be faster. Stronger. And that meant some personal training. The books Kakashi had given her were lying on her bed. She'd get started on that later tonight. Unfortunately, she didn't have the shadow clone jutsu down yet, but she was sure she would soon enough. For now, she needed to exercise. But where to start? Sakura considered her options for a moment before deciding to try out a ninja tool shop. They'd have to have something that would help speed things up and maybe some advice if it was run by an actual ninja. She nodded to herself and made her way to the door. Once outside, she considered where she should start. She knew the weapon shop she used was probably a no-go, as she knew it was run by civilians. They might be able to help her, but she still thought a ninja-run shop would be her best bet. She remembered a shop she used to pass by on her way to the academy and decided to try that one out first. No luck, the shop owner knew his tools but didn't have much advice for training beyond the standard. So she continued her search. 2 shops later and Sakura hadn't found much other than disappointment. They had, in fact, been run by civilians and so they hadn't had much advice for her on where to start. They did at least offer quality gear, but she'd had a decent supply of weapons, so that hadn't offered her anything. She could only hope this one would have what she was looking for. As the door creaked open, she heard a voice within the store. "Yo, Tenji. Is my order in yet?" The pink-haired girl stepped inside the store to see a slightly older girl standing at the counter, talking to the shop owner. She was a bit taller than Sakura, with dark brown hair shaped into 2 buns. She wore a pink sleeveless kipao blouse with yellow buttons and dark green pants. "Why yes indeed. Just came in fact. Sorry for the delay," the shopkeeper said, rubbing the back of his head sheepishly. He was a man who looked to be in his late 40s, wearing a simple white shirt, black pants, and a forge apron. He was tall, standing slightly higher than her sensei with a muscular build, almost like a bodybuilder. He had short black hair cut flat at the top and coal-colored eyes. "That's okay, just let me see the goods. I've gotta keep my arsenal stocked up," she said, leaning forward onto the counter, and Sakura could practically hear the smile in her voice. The man laughed. "You got it. Only the best for my #1 customer." He turned around and walked behind the draped doorway that led to the back. As Sakura walked into the store, the girl turned to see her, allowing the pink-haired girl to see she had eyes that matched her hair. She gave her a cheerful wave. "Hey there, you look lost." I guess I am." Sakura shrugged. "I usually only come to places like this to buy tools." "Oh, looking for something new?" the girl asked conversationally. "Maybe I can help out. Name's Tenten, by the way, you?" "Sakura Haruno." The pink-haired girl returned before looking around, focusing on training equipment. "I'm looking for something to kickstart my training, but I barely know where to start." The other shopkeepers were civilians so they couldn't really tell me anything besides the obvious. Tenten raised a brow and gave Sakura an appraising eye after looking at her forehead protector. "Just getting started, huh? But he kinda have a lot to make up for." Now Tenten looked a little irked, resting an arm on the counter. "Ah, you're one of those fangirls who don't take being a kunoichi seriously, aren't you?" Sakura cringed. Yeah, that pretty much summed up how she'd been until now. She could understand why Tenten was annoyed, she probably had experience with people like her. While she thought her academics marked her as a great ninja in the making before, she could see now how someone like her would give kunoichi a bad name. She could deny it, but she wouldn't. She was facing her mistakes and moving past them, and that meant owning up to them. Ayami was. "My team and I had our first real mission not too long ago. It was bad. I couldn't do anything but stand on the sidelines." She stood up straight and looked at the older girl resolutely. It was a wake-up call. "I want to change. I want to be able to fight beside them instead of holding them back like I did before, so here I am." Tenten seemed to weigh her words before smiling. "Well, in that case, I'll be happy to help." She then frowned. "Though from what I know of your type, my first bit of advice is stop dieting." She stressed those last 2 words. "Your body needs fuel, you know. You need calories and the right nutrients to build up muscle. If you don't eat right, it could slow or even kill your progress." Sakura grimaced. She hadn't even thought of that. "Yeah, that makes sense." Tenten sighed and ran a hand through her hair. Where to begin? It was at that point that the shopkeeper returned from the back. He was holding a pretty large roll, big enough that he had to carry it on his shoulders. Here you go. Everything you asked for. With that, he unfurled it on the counter and wow. It covered the whole thing. There were dozens, probably well over 100 different weapons inside. Shuriken, kunai, kusarigama, daggers, short swords, you name it. If it was smaller than a katana, it was probably there. Whoa, overkill much? She thought as Tenten ran back to the counter. As if all that weren't enough, he added 3 scrolls on top of that, though apparently there was enough trust between them that Tenten didn't feel the need to test it. Her eyes gleamed as she looked over the various pointy objects before she hurriedly took out a check. Nice. Thanks, old man. No, thank you. He said, taking the check. She wasn't surprised he was grateful. If Tenten made purchases like that all the time, she probably half paid to keep him in business by herself. That was an exaggeration, of course. Probably. So, who's this? Friend of yours? Tenji asked, looking to her while the bun-haired brunette pulled out a sealing scroll of her own, sealed away the roll of weapons, and put all 4 in her pouch. Oh, just a rookie, looking to better herself. The obviously a weapon specialist answered before gesturing an open hand towards her. Tenji, this is Sakura. Sakura, let me introduce you to Tenji, one of the best weapon dealers in the village. The shop owner rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. I hardly think so, but I'm not going to turn down free advertisement. He said with a chuckle before turning a grin to the pink-haired girl. So, looking for something to help in training, I take it. At her nod, he stepped out from behind the counter and put a hand to his chin. How about some arm and leg weights to start with? Tenten suggested. He shrugged. Yeah, good as place as any. He gestured for her to follow as he walked over to a far wall with all sorts of training equipment on display. Sakura was doubtful. Arm and leg weights. Tenten nodded. Yeah, sounds simple, but they really do help. You've just gotta make sure you use both, or you'll screw up your balance unless you're looking to focus on punches or kicks, or you want to make yourself a speed freak. Ah, here we go, he said, placing his hands on a display. These are top of the line. You could go with the standard weights and have to switch them out whenever you're looking to increase the weight, or you could use these. The objects on display look like standard wrist and ankle guards. These babies have sealing jutsu engraved on the inside. Just channel chakra into them to increase the weight. Too much, just touch and release the chakra inside, like any sealing scroll, and it goes back to normal. Just don't go overboard with all of them at once and turn yourself into a living floor mat, and they're perfect for training. He said with a laugh that said he probably knew people who turned themselves into anchors with these things. Hawk, that was pretty neat. So how much for them? The pink-haired genin asked, thinking in the back of her mind she should get some for Naruto and Sasuke too while she was at it. It would help them out just the same, and it'd be a good first step towards being a truly helpful teammate. 5,200, Ryo said. That's wrist or ankle guards, not both. Sakura stared for a moment, then her eyes bugged out into large pits of solid white. What? What? Tell me they aren't worth it. Though, to be fair, you could get the same result for free if you're good with sealing jutsu. Or if you know someone who is, he raised a brow. You got those skills. Or got a friend who does. Well, nice of him to give her an out. Unfortunately, she wasn't sure she did. Kakashi said he'd tutor Naruto in the art, but she didn't know for sure how good he was. Besides, if he could have done something like this, wouldn't he have suggested it already? She then remembered how he didn't teach them the tree climbing exercise until they were on an A rank mission. Suddenly, she wasn't so sure. She turned to look forlornly at the training tools. 31,200 Ryo plus tax. This would wipe out her entire savings. Everything she'd saved up before graduation and all the pay from their missions. She could only barely afford it because of that time they captured Tora. The one reason that there wasn't a strike on that particular mission, despite how annoying that cat was and how many times it got away. It was owned by the wife of the fire daimyo. That meant refusal was not an option and the pay was good. Well, going to go for it? Tenten asked by her side. Personally, I don't really have a preference, and my teammate prefers the old-fashioned kind, but it's your choice. Sakura looked at the display before mentally kissing her savings goodbye. I'll take 3 sets of each. Sakura stared at the scroll that now contained her newly bought training gear as she walked down the road, her face slightly pale. Wow, really generous of you to buy some for your teammates too, Tenten said, raising a brow. It was for the team, Sakura replied in monotone. After how I acted, I owe them. This is the least I can do. She said without a hint of emotion. Well, nice to know you're serious about making it up to them, Tenten said with a sympathetic smile. Sakura got the feeling she'd probably blown all her money on weapons at one point or another. Got any more advice? Yeah, get a light start tonight, but talk to your sensei before doing anything too extreme. You don't want to overdo it when you're just starting out. Pace yourself, and once you get used to it, start pushing harder. Tenten continued as Sakura nodded absent-mindedly, thoughts still on her empty savings. The brunette seemed to take pity on her. Let's talk more over lunch. My treat. She gave a slight laugh. I get the feeling you won't be eating out on your own for a while. Sakura grimaced. Yeah. Thanks. Anywhere you want to go in particular? Sakura closed her eyes and set aside all thought of her practically non-existent bank account with some difficulty. This would probably be the last time she could eat out in a while. Might as well get what she liked best. How about the Nakamura's dango shop? Sounds good to me. It didn't take too long for the two girls to make it to the shop. Sakura ordered her favorite. And Mitsu, well, Tenten just went with the shop's signature dish. So, what's your team like? Tenten asked after swallowing the first bite of her dango. Sakura looked up from her and Mitsu before looking to the sky. Well, there's Sasuke. Sasuke-cha. She curled in on herself and blushed. The guy you like? Tenten guessed. She nodded, he's just so cool, was at the top of our class. He's always aloof, never lets anything get to him. He's just so dreamy. Reminds me of my teammate, Tenten commented. The aloof part, I mean. Not that I want to ask him out or anything. His name's Niji Hyuga. Always serious, kinda on the cold side. But that's a bit of a breath of fresh air on my team. Oh? Sakura voiced curiously. Tenten tilted her head back and placed a hand on her head, looking like she'd gotten a headache. My other teammate. Rock Lee and my sensei guy are kinda nuts. No, I take that back, they are nuts. They're always so intense. Then train until you drop types and always screaming about the power of youth. She said the last words in an ardent voice before looking to the side, her expression a combination of annoyed and exhausted. They make these insane challenges for themselves all the time. Like if I can't do 500 squats, then I will do 600 push-ups, or if I can't do 300 sit-ups, I will do 100 laps around the village. She sighed. I just wish they'd cool down and grow up a bit. Sakura chuckled. Sounds tough. But at least your sensei makes you work hard. Mine was hands off, to put things lightly. He's only now starting to shape up after we almost got killed. Tenten frowned. What? What happened? Sakura waved her hand. Long story. The short version, the client lied about what we were up against. The blonde-haired girl's face wrinkled in exasperation. Oh, one of those. Well, his whole country was in a bad way, so I get why he did it, but still, Sakura sighed. It took that to get him to teach us how to climb trees with chakra. Tenten seemed surprised, then frustrated. What? Are you kidding? That's one of the first things Guy-sensei taught us. Yeah, looking back, I thought that was something we should have worked on earlier. The younger Kunoichi shook her head. Well, at least he's actually trying now. Really drove us into the ground the other day. It's tough, but I think it's better than him leaving us to train by ourselves unless it's literally life and death. Suddenly, I find myself appreciating Guy-sensei, Tenten said dully. Just a little. Sakura smirked. My other teammate is Naruto Uzumaki. Remember the kid who graffitied the Hokage monument? Tenten chuckled. Oh geez, how can I forget? Still can't believe no one noticed until he was almost done. He's a show-off and a loudmouth, and he can be kinda stupid, but he's the kinda guy who's always willing to lend a hand to someone in need. Though I only saw that recently, she said, thinking of how determined he was to pull Inari from his isolation and despair. Well, sounds like your team got off to a rough start. Here's hoping better days are ahead. She said, raising her dango in mock salute. Here. The next day once again saw the three genin of Team 7 waiting on their sensei in the third training ground, clearly in no rush to break his habit of being late all the time. Today, however, things were much quieter than usual. Usually, Naruto and Sakura would be climbing up the walls, railing against Kakashi for keeping them waiting. Again. Not today, however, but the reason why had both Sasuke and Sakura raising a brow. Today, Naruto had his nose buried in a book, as did the pink-haired girl. Well, not just that. He was also writing things out, occasionally looking back to his book and grumbling at some imperfection in his work. Naruto had to admit he could understand why they were surprised. He was the dead last in the academy, and he usually blew off studying when it wasn't about ninjutsu or something cool. It did somewhat surprise him that Sasuke was the first to voice his curiosity. What are you doing, Naruto? Eh? Naruto looked up from his work, eyebrows raised at the question came from Sasuke before he shrugged. Oh, I'm just working on my sealing jutsu. Kakashi-sensei told me to write out the symbols until I memorized what they mean. They're not all kanji, you know. But he's having me practice writing that out too. Need to get it all down as fast and neat as possible. One wrong symbol and the whole thing falls apart. He gave me some low-level seals to work out when I think I'm up to it. Thought I could get a little extra practice in since we've got nothing better to do. Sasuke gave a grunt of acknowledgement and looked away, satisfied with the answer. The blonde went back to his work. 2 more hours went by before their sensei deigned to show himself, walking into the clearing as if nothing was wrong. "Morning guys," he said with a wave. "Late as always," Naruto accused, pointing at him. "Are you ever going to be on time?" Sakura yelled, raising a fist. Sasuke's expression said that he'd enjoyed the quiet while it had lasted. "Well, at least this time you two had something to keep you occupied," Kakashi commented before his gaze turned to the Uchiha heir. "Give you any ideas, Sasuke?" Sasuke grunted in response before saying, "A few." "Well, that's good. At least you won't all be standing around wasting time just waiting every day." "You're the reason we're always waiting," Naruto and Sakura cried in unison. Now, let's not point fingers," Kakashi said with his eye smile. "Now then, for today we'll." "Actually Sensei," Sakura interrupted, raising her hand as if they were still in the academy. "I've got something to add to our training." Naruto looked at Sakura in mild shock. Even Sasuke raised a brow. It was pretty clear to anyone who spent time with her that Sakura didn't do much training. After all, back in wave after she got to the top of the tree, rather than continuing to practice or doing something else, she'd just stopped training altogether. Looking back, maybe he should have said something about that. "Oh?" Kakashi seemed interested. Sakura picked up a bag she'd brought with her and reached inside, pulling out wrist and arm guards. "You got us protective gear?" Sasuke asked skeptically. "They're a lot more than that," Sakura replied. "They're actually training weights. This gear's lined with seals that get heavier the more chakra you put in them, so you can control how much they weigh you down. You can release it all like a sealing scroll to return them to normal." She smiled. "I got a complete set for each of us while I was out the other day." "Oh whoa. Yeah, that was one way to speed up your training. And it was a gift from Sakura. Awesome." He was already planning to wear them whenever he wasn't on a mission or something. Not to mention taking a look at those seals. Even Sasuke looked mildly impressed. "Wow, thanks Sakura," Naruto said as he took his. "Yeah, thanks," Sasuke added, looking a bit impressed. "Don't mention it. I was trying to find a way to hit the ground running with my training and thought it sounded like something we could all use." She handed Sasuke his set, which took them and regarded them inquisitively. Sakura rubbed the back of her head sheepishly. I didn't really know where to start, but I was lucky enough to run into this older girl named Tenten, and she showed me these and gave me a lot of advice." "Tenten?" Kakashi spoke up. Sakura nodded. "Yeah, but she said I should run it all by you before I did anything serious, so I don't strain myself." "But Advisum, this Tenten sensei wouldn't happen to be named Guy, would he?" Sakura nodded. "That's him." "Huh? You know this guy Kakashi sensei?" Naruto blinked in surprise. "I do. He's my self-proclaimed eternal rival." The silver-haired man replied, shaking his head. "He routinely challenges me to any sort of contest and won't take no for an answer. When it's my turn to pick, I usually ask for something quick and simple. I've even gotten him to settle for a match of rock paper scissors he mused, causing his students to look at him incredulously. That's eccentric, but he's easily one of the greatest Jujutsu masters around. Not just here in Konoha, but in the entire shinobi world." Naruto said in awe. "Yeah, that's in line with what Tenten told me," Sakura commented. "She was pretty surprised when I told her you were my sensei, but she didn't say anything about the whole eternal rivals bit." "Did she offer any other advice?" Kakashi asked. Sakura seemed to shrink in on herself. "She told me I needed to stop dieting. And it looked like she was taking that to heart, too, from how she grimaced." Good, he'd seen how little she ate in wave when she started to worry about her weight and wondered how she got by. Dieting didn't make any sense to him in the first place. As long as you didn't eat like Choji, you'd burn through whatever you ate fast enough as a shinobi anyway. And a few other pointers after I told her how lax you'd been so far. Kakashi suddenly tensed, sucking in a quick breath. "Yeah, you told Guy's student about my teaching?" "Ooh-hee." Kakashi buried his face in his hand. "Oh ho, terrific. If she mentions this to Guy, I'll never hear the end of it. He'll probably run straight to my house with tears in his eyes, screaming about youth dulling or something. He'll probably try to pull me into one of his hugs." Sasuke and Sakura stared at their sensei, exasperated at the Jonin's antics, while Naruto snickered. Sounded like this guy was going to be a handful for his teacher. Served him right for leaving them hanging all the time. Kakashi took a deep breath. "Well, nothing to do about it now but hope for the best now then, since Sakura was so generous as to get you these gifts, it'd be remiss not to make use of them. Let's take a moment to see what you can handle, then you'll be wearing them for all of our training today. I'll work out how I want you to handle them outside my supervision by tomorrow." "Alright, I think that's good for today," Kakashi mused as he looked over his students 5 hours later. He clapped his hands, a signal for the various clones Naruto had training to disperse. The blonde swayed on his feet for a moment. Weariness washed over him as everything the clones had gained poured into his mind, along with all their combined exhaustion. But it was nothing he couldn't handle. After swaying on his feet for a moment, he righted himself. He wiped the sweat off the side of his head with his sleeve as he reviewed what they'd gained. It wasn't much. They'd only sliced about a quarter of the way through the paper, but that was progress. He and his clones were getting the hang of water walking too, slightly faster than Sasuke too. Nice. Although, the fact that he was more or less getting 5 times the work in, plus more as his clones kept at it once they moved on to Taijutsu, had something to do with it. Of course, Sakura already had it down. And wow, did her gift make things harder, but no pain no gain. He'd gladly wear these weights all day long if it meant he could be the awesome ninja he dreamed of being. Good work today, especially you, Sakura. It's good to see you're turning over a new leaf. Kakashi said, looking down at the pink-haired girl. Once again, Sakura had worn herself ragged and was currently lying on her back, staring at the sky. Naruto winced as he looked at her. He hoped she adjusted soon. I'm going to have to if I want to stop being dead weight, Sakura grumbled. Sakura Naruto started. Naruto, don't. Sakura waved him off as she sat up, wincing slightly. I know what you're going to say, and thank ya, but I know I've got a lot of catching up to Dodo Sasuke and you. She then looked up with determination. But I will. I'll work as hard it takes so that I don't drag you two down next time we're in trouble. Naruto wasn't sure what to say. In the end, he just settled for smiling at her determination to get stronger for their sakes. Surprisingly, Sasuke did too. Oh, by the way, Kakashi began. I imagine those training tools cost a small fortune. Sakura cringed, proving him right. To have bought 3 sets like that, I'm guessing you've pretty much wiped out all your funds, haven't you? Sakura hung her head, a cloud of woe hovering over her as she began poking the ground and mumbling to herself. Wait, Sakura, you mean you totally broke your bank getting these for us? Naruto asked, his eyes wide. Sasuke raised a brow as he looked at the pink-haired girl. Sakura, you know you could have asked me, right? This wouldn't have made a dent in my funds. I know, Sakura replied listlessly. Whoa, hang on. You didn't have to do that for us. Take them out, they probably won't give you your money back since we've already used them, will they? Then, how much was it? I'll pay you for mine. Naruto said. That's alright. She replied. Sasuke frowned. I don't. Listen, Sakura said, standing back up. This is something I wanted to do. I saw how this could help all of us and decided to go for it so that we could be the best team we could be. Just take it as me doing my part for Team 7. That silenced all future arguments from him. And Sasuke, from the looks of it. After a moment, Naruto replied. Well, guess I'll have to do my part too somehow. I'll think of something. HN. Sasuke gave an affirmative. You know, the timing for this couldn't be better, Kakashi said, drawing their attention. You see, they finally finished processing Zabuza's body today, and so I got my bounty, though the village did keep half of it, as always. Good for you, sensei, Naruto grumbled, crossing his arms. Kakashi nodded. Normally, a bounty is divided between all involved in actually defeating the ninja in question, so of course it all went to me, Kakashi said, closing his eye. But since I wouldn't have survived my first bout with Zabuza without quick thinking on Naruto and Sasuke's part, I should have pulled us back from that mission before then. Why it was, he saying. Kakashi smiled and held up 3 slips of paper. I decided we should split it. Wow, for real, Naruto cried, smiling widely, his fists balled before him in excitement. Well, why but I. Sakura stammered. Sakura. Kakashi interrupted. I know what you're going to say, but this is my money. Just like the money you spent on the weights was yours. If I feel like sharing it with you, it's my choice. If you feel you haven't earned it, then just keep working like you have been these past few days and prove my faith in you isn't misplaced. Dado, okay, sensei, Sakura replied. Come on, Sakura, be more excited. Naruto said as he reached up to take his check. We're getting. Naruto trailed off into an exclamation of shock. He stared down at the paper grasped in both his hands with his mouth wide open, his eyes wide open pits of solid white. What is then? Sakura got her check. Her reaction mirrored his. As the two stared, stupefied at their rewards, Sasuke simply raised a brow and pocketed his own. Naruto came out of his stupor first. Kakashi-sensei, thank you so much. He cheered among numerous praises as he threw himself at his sensei and hugged his waist. Hey. Get off of me. Kakashi tried to shake him off before finally managing to pry him away, sitting him down with the indifferent Sasuke and slowly recovering Sakura. Now, just do me a favor and don't spend it frivolously. Keep most of it for what you need or things you think will help with your training. And please, don't gamble with it, or at least do so responsibly if you can't resist. Don't be like Lady Tsunade. Huh? Tsunade? Naruto questioned. Really? Sakura questioned incredulously. Naruto, she's one of the legendary Sannin, 3 of the strongest shinobi our village ever produced. She's the granddaughter of the first Hokage and one of the students of Lord 3rd Hokage. Her teammate trained the 4th. Whoa. And didn't I see we'll have to brush up on your recent history too. Lady Tsunade's every bit the Kunoichi her reputation paints her as, Kakashi acknowledged with a nod. However, she has one problem she's not so well known around here for. You see, she has a chronic gambling addiction. She simply can't help herself. That wouldn't be so bad, I suppose, there are worse vices, but it's coupled with some of the worst luck known to man. She always loses but can't stop herself. This unfortunate combination has earned her another nickname throughout the elemental nations. He paused, letting the suspense build. For once, even with the mask, they could tell he was smiling. They thought they might have even seen him shake as he held back a laugh. The legendary sucker. Sasuke and Sakura looked very unimpressed with this part of Tsunade's legend, while Naruto cracked up in laughter. Naruto sighed as he pulled out another weed and tossed it into the plastic bag hanging from his shoulder. It had been a few days after Sakura had given their team that gear. Kakashi had been putting them through some pretty tough exercises and taijutsu drills, made even harder by the weights, not that any of them were complaining. They'd all been just a bit unsteady on their feet after all was said and done, him more so after his clones dispersed, but they all felt good about how things were going. After half an hour of rest, they'd been off to do a D-rank mission. Couldn't put those off forever, could they? Honestly, missions like this seem to drag on forever. Pull out one weed. Oh hey, there's a few dozen more. Get them all. Time to get started on the next area. Got that done. Great job, you're about 1/10 of the way there. It didn't help that Kakashi had forbidden them all from using jutsu to speed things up. Something about teaching them a lesson in patience. Bah. Yeah, I get you, Sakura said, obviously having heard his sigh. Just grin and bear it like any other D-rank. Just think, some people do this for a living. It's not so bad when you keep that in mind. Maybe, but I get the feeling a professional would never let it get like this in the first place, Naruto grumbled. Keep it down, Naruto. The client might hear you. The pink-haired girl hissed at him. Naruto shrugged. I call it like I see it. Besides, she's inside and the doors and windows are closed. I can't see how she'd hear me unless I screamed it from the rooftop. You have a point. Still, Sakura replied with a sigh of her own. She then spied what he was doing. Wait a second. Huh? Naruto looked up just as he was about to pluck a small yellow flower from the ground. He didn't know a lot about plants, but he knew enough to know these were weeds. And they spread fast if you let them. We might need to ask the client about those, Sakura said, cupping her chin. Dandelions are technically weeds, but they have their uses. They attract bees to pollinate flowers, and their roots can draw up nutrients for other plants. She might want those left alone. Naruto blinked, his eyebrows rising. Wow, Sakura. You really know your stuff. Sakura rubbed the back of her head sheepishly and looked away, with a slight grimace. Not real, you used to be friends with Ino, remember? Her family runs a flower shop. I just picked up a few things. Oh, Naruto cringed. That was probably a sore subject. I really need to patch things up with her, Sakura admitted. But I've got no idea where to start. Not when I was the one who broke up our friendship. She looked down at that, her face melancholy. Naruto guessed she was probably thinking of past times with Inen, probably the day they went their separate ways. Over Sasuke. But this was the first he was hearing that she was the one to end things. He got the feeling that fixing that wasn't going to be easy. Well, you won't know until you try, right? That's what Tenten said. Oh, did you meet with her again? Sakura nodded, seeming to brighten up a little. Yeah, she's been giving me some good advice. And it's nice to actually hang out with a girl my age again, or anyone outside class really. Wait, had Ino been her only friend? And she chose to fight with her over Sasuke. Well, he could agree on how great it was to finally have people to spend time with. He knew personally that being alone absolutely sucked. At least she had people she could talk to at the academy. Most of the other kids just put him down aside from Shikamaru and Choji, and they hadn't exactly talked much. Well anyway, what's the worst that could happen? She says. Screw you and walks off. At least then you can say you tried. You won't get anywhere if you just think about it all the time. Naruto said before giving her a thumbs up. And worst comes the worst, you still have us. And Tenten, right? Yeah, I guess so. Thanks. Things were going pretty well for his team now, Kakashi couldn't help but think as he neared his home. Naruto was handling the shadow clone training method well, as in he wasn't collapsing immediately after every session. Though, today's conversation told him he'd need to improve the blonde's knowledge of recent history as well as his vocabulary. Actually, better make that history in general. It also might be a good idea to get his students their own copies of the bingo book. It was a little early, sure, but having knowledge of who's who in the shinobi world couldn't hurt. It was good to see Sakura step up on her own. He'd been sure he'd have to take her aside at some point and hammer home how badly she needed to improve, but thankfully that had worked itself out. Shama took was a near-death experience for his whole team, but the emphasis was on near there. And she'd apparently stopped dieting. That was good, though time would tell if she'd slip back into old habits. Hopefully, now that Sakura was actually training and her body was getting the fuel it needs, her physical energy would improve. She definitely had more than enough mental energy, and with that, her stores of chakra would start to see improvement. Nothing too drastic. Sakura would never have Sasuke's reserves, never mind Naruto's, but hopefully, he'd soon be able to say they were better than abysmal. As for Naruto, he got the feeling he'd take to Sakura's gift like a duck to water. Good, with his healing power, he probably didn't have to worry about the usual drawbacks, not to mention the aches and pains that came with overdoing it. He'd have to take Naruto aside and tell him to push things a little harder and maybe in a few weeks up the number of shadow clones. And for Sasuke, maybe some tutoring on making use of his Sharingan's gain jutsu was in order. They were doing good, but they'd need to be better for the upcoming Chunin exams, and they only had about a month and a half. Finally arriving at his door, he reached for the knob. And suddenly, a sound reached his ears. Loud pounding footsteps that likely echoed through the whole city block. He turned to the source of the sound to see a massive dust cloud rushing towards him. And at its front was a tall man, well-muscled but not overly so. He had a strong jawline, black hair shaped into a bowl cut, and, perhaps his most distinguishing feature, sported a massive pair of thick eyebrows. He wore a standard Konoha flak jacket over a green jumpsuit with orange leg warmers, rather than the blue shirt and pants most Konoha shinobi wore. A red forehead protector was tied around his waist like a belt. "Kakashi," he bellowed, and as he grew near, the silver-haired man could see that there were streams of tears falling from his eyes like waterfalls. Oh no. The clunk of wood clashing with wood rang out in the clearing as two kunoichi clashed. Sakura made several rapid strikes with her bow staff, right, left, above, below, only for Tenten to easily block each strike with her own. The pink-haired girl leaned to the side to avoid a retaliatory jab at her chest before ducking down as Tenten swept the weapon to the side. She lashed out at Tenten's legs, only for the brunette to leap over her attack, flipping and spinning in the air to land on her feet. Sakura immediately charged, spinning to add momentum to her next attack as Tenten landed. A sweeping blow aimed at her waist. Tenten kicked back out of range. Sakura brought her staff over her head and put all her strength into her next attack. Tenten raised her staff and blocked Sakura's overhead attack with a final loud crack. For a moment, the two strained against each other before Tenten smiled. "Pretty good, considering you just started a few weeks ago." Sakura smiled back. "Thanks." But Tenten spun to the side and bent her staff, letting Sakura's weapon slip off and throw her off balance. She then jabbed at Sakura's side before following up with a kick that sent her to the ground. "You've still got a long way to go. Friendly piece of advice, if you ever get into that weapon lock like that, break it or back off ASAP. It's way too easy to take advantage of." Sakura sat up, rubbing her side to ease the pain. "Yeah, I can see that," she replied as Tenten walked over and offered her a hand. "And I think I got another valuable lesson from all this." "Oh, really? What?" "Don't try to fight a walking arsenal with a weapon." Sakura smiled as that got a chuckle out of Tenten. "Meh, it's not like close-range combat is my specialty. That would be more my teammate's shticks," Tenten said, placing a hand on her hip. "Fancy a trip to the hot spring? I know I could stand to unwind after back-to-back training sessions." Sakura looked up at the sky and guessed there might be 3 hours of daylight left. Tenten was right, after training all day with Kakashi and then a sparring match with Tenten, all while her gear was weighing her down, a soak would be nice, sure. And thanks for all the help. Hey, don't worry about it. It's actually kind of refreshing to train with someone who isn't constantly screaming about youth. The thought occurred to Sakura as they began to walk back to the village. "Hey Tenten. You usually keep all those weapons in seals, right?" "Yeah, why?" Tenten asked. "Have you ever thought of branching out? Adding seals to those weapons?" Seeing the look Tenten was giving her, Sakura raised her hands. "It's just, well, one of my teammates has been learning wind jutsu lately and when we try to throw weapons at him, well." "Wind jutsu?" Tenten replied before looking upward in thought. She grimaced a moment later. Yimi style probably wouldn't work well against something like that. Maybe step up the training on close-range weapons. Or branch out with seals, like I said. Tenten thought before she nodded. She then smiled. "See? Helping you is paying off after all." Sakura smiled, glad to help her fellow kunoichi after all she did for her. So, made any progress with that boy you like? I wish, Sakura grumbled before she brought her fist to her chest, a determined look on her face. But I'm not going to give up. She then deflated as she remembered something. Besides, I think my chances are better than they were before. I'm pretty sure how I acted before just annoyed him. Probably, if he's anything like Niji. Tenten agreed. And how'd things go, that old friend of yours? Sakura hung her head, shadows covering her eyes. That bad, huh? Well, just keep trying. And if it doesn't work out, at least you can say you did your best, right? I guess. With a few final swishes, Naruto finished his work and set his brush on the floor, sitting back and smiling as he pulled up the scroll to look at his handiwork. It was an array of kanji and sealing symbols, the bases of which fanned out slightly and formed a broken circle. It was just a simple storage seal. It was the most basic of the basics, but everyone had to start somewhere, right? It wasn't his first time making one. Right now, it was all about repetition, like Kakashi-sensei said. Using these simple seals as practice for getting this down as fast, neatly, and accurately as possible. While many high-level sealing jutsu allowed you to conjure the array out of chakra, most required you actually them right out. One single mistake and the seal wouldn't work at best, and who knew when you'd need to draw one up on the spot. He'd had him take up calligraphy for the same reason. He placed the scroll back on the ground, pulled a single kunai on the circle before making a hand sign. Seal. In a burst of smoke, the kunai vanished. He smirked for a moment before focusing on it again. Release. The kunai reappeared in a similar cloud of smog. Naruto grinned as he picked up the scroll. Another job well done. He may only know a few basic techniques at this point, but he had already cooked up several ways to use the few seals he knew. Considering how complex the art was, he'd come a long way in the last month or so, with some help from his shadow clones. And he was glad to say his other skills had improved by leaps and bounds too. He'd really been pushing himself as he tried to live up to his parents' legacy, quickly learning to abuse the hell out of Sakura's gift and his own healing. And the idea that his parents were watching gave him all he needed to muddle through all the reading. And wow, there were a lot of things he'd missed out on. History like the rise of the Sannin. Basic facts like chakra being composed of mental and physical energies. Also, apparently, the second Hokage invented the shadow clone Jutsuneid. He was still catching up, but he was determined not to let himself be caught lacking in that department again. Like the old man said. The Hokage was supposed to mark the road for all to follow. An example, like the fourth had said. How was he doing that if he let himself stay an idiot because studying was too hard? Speaking of example, looking back at his sexy Jitsai, that was probably never going to be seen again. He probably needed to talk to Konohamaru about that. Well, at least he had inspired the kid to work harder outside of that technique. With it was something, right? Kakashi had since upped the number of clones he'd used a day to 50. That had required a bit of an adjustment. While the combined fatigue of 8 clones left him a bit tired, he could shrug it off. 50 knocked him out cold. So now, rather than disperse them immediately, they'd disperse in groups of 5 at the end of starting in the last hour of training. It worked pretty well. He got all the experience, and there was enough time between the hits that he could get through and not fall flat on his face and wind up in dreamland. He looked over to the kitchen, where 5 clones were getting in some extra training. It had taken a few weeks, but he'd mastered both the water walking and the leaf cutting exercises Kakashi had taught him. The man had since given him a new method to train both in control and in the wind element. Each clone their hands before them, channeling wind chakra through their palms. The aim was to levitate a leaf and keep it as stable as possible. Their training had only gotten more intense as the days went by, and Kakashi made them a set schedule to stick to. They would spend half an hour on warm-ups before adding the weighted gear. 1 hour doing exercises, 1 on chakra control, another on taijutsu and teamwork, a final 1 on ninjutsu and genjutsu tutoring, before finally taking a D-rank mission after a rest period. But some pointers for independent training like his own. Sasuke was still quiet and brooding as always, but he didn't put him down as much, and Naruto had turned down the jealousy. While they competed during just about every training session, there was a slight sense of camaraderie there now, rather than the spiteful rivalry they once had. Sakura was kinder too. She hadn't even hit him in the last month. She'd really put her all into catching up to them. And she'd toned down that thing she had with Sasuke. They'd all really had come a long way since the day they first met Kakashi-sensei. Naruto rose to his feet and made his way to his kitchen. A quick cup of ramen for a job well done, and then he'd get ready for bed. Once those clones dispelled, he'd be out like a light. Things were much quieter than they had been a month ago, as Team 7 awaited their chronically late sensei. This time Naruto was sitting on the ground as he worked on a seal. This one was a bit more complex than the standard containment seal, but he'd gotten it down. 3 completed ones lay beside him, and a few feet away, a circle had been carved into the ground where he tested one of them. Finishing the 4th seal tag, he pocketed them and pulled out a book on sealing jutsu, looking to find another to try out. Sakura sat nearby, leaning back on one of the posts as she read a book on poisons. Sasuke had been the last to join in, reading a book on the many ways to use chakra. Kinda surprising when he was the former head of their class. Naruto found himself a lot less frustrated with his sensei's antics this way. Oh, he was still annoyed as all hell that the man had to be at least 2 hours late to the meetings he set, but it was more bearable when they weren't standing around doing nothing for those 2 hours. Case in point. The 3 looked up as their sensei walked into the clearing, not showing the least bit of shame at having kept them hanging. Again. "Hey guys, how are you doing? Not even going to try to come up with an excuse, sensei?" Naruto asked dryly while throwing a slightly bitter look his way. He felt a lot less high-strung about the silver-haired man showing his face without so much as a hint of guilt. It had helped them adjust a bit. He and Sakura could settle for scathing looks nowadays instead of screaming at him. That didn't mean they were any happier with him. They just weren't as worked up when he finally got there. "Well, you never seem to believe what I tell you anyway." "No surprise, I'd expect better excuses from a 5-year-old, Sakura spoke up, still glaring at her sensei. "You wound me, Sakura," Kakashi said with a straight face. Sakura scoffed. "Go cry to that black cat you keep telling us about." "Yep, just another typical day for Team 7. "So guys," Sakura said, getting her teammates' attention as the 3 walked back into the village proper, about to go their separate ways after another successful D-rank mission. They came to a halt as they looked back at her. "I was thinking. I know that you 2 live by yourselves, so, Willie asked my parents if they'd be okay if you came over for dinner." "Huh, really?" Naruto asked with a blink before grinning. Needless to say, getting invited to Sakura's place was the last thing he expected today. "That's not necessary," Sasuke said with a shrug. "I know that," Sakura replied with a shake of her head, raising her hands as if to reassure him. "I just thought it'd be nice, is Ali mean, you 2 haven't had a home-cooked meal in a long time, right? And after that, I thought we could put our heads together and brainstorm on ways to improve. Kakashi-sensei's not going to do everything for us, you know." She looked away. Ain't that the truth? He hadn't been the one to suggest they start studying while they waited for him. And Sakura was the one who bought their weights. The silver-haired jonin was definitely working harder at it than he had before, but still. But then, maybe he just didn't want them to rely on him for everything. He was there to teach and guide them, not hold their hands. He'd been trying hard, so he'd give him the benefit of the doubt. Sasuke closed his eyes. "Okay. Really? Wow, that was a surprise." Naruto had been sure Sasuke would turn her down. Maybe they were starting to grow on him, even if he did still act all cool and distant. He couldn't help but smile at that. Sakura's face lit up at that. "Really? Great. I'm sure you love it. And we really need to think about how we can communicate in the field. I mean, right now we have to rely on radios, that's not going to work all the time. We need to find other ways to communicate and..." "Whoa, slow down. Save it for the after-dinner meet," Naruto said, though he couldn't deny she had a point there. Sasuke was giving her a look of vague interest. "You've put a lot of thought into this, huh?" Sakura seemed a bit bashful at that. "Well, I just want our team to be the best we can be, you know." Naruto nodded. "Yeah, I get you. Thanks for looking out for us, Sakura." The pink-haired girl grinned, putting her hands on her hips. "Well, someone's gotta keep you boys in line. We all know how you like to show off." "Hey." The number 1 hyperactive knuckle-headed ninja started. He then sheepishly rubbed the back of his head as he remembered he had that nickname. "Willie, that's kinda true, I guess," he admitted, causing Sakura to chuckle. "So, where is your place, anyway?" Naruto arrived at the Hirano family apartment the next day after cleaning up in the wake of the day's training and mission, with a light spring in his step. No surprise really, it was the first time he'd ever been invited over to someone else's home. It wouldn't be a big deal to most, but for someone who'd been shunned by just about everyone for most of his life, it was a milestone. Reaching the door, he gave it a knock. Soon enough, a blonde woman with green eyes a shade darker than Sakura's opened the door. "Naruto. First one here, I see." Naruto gave the woman a wide grin. "Hi, nice to meet you. You must be Miss Hirano." "Please, call me Miyuki," Sakura's mother replied before standing aside. "I'm just putting the finishing touches on dinner, so you shouldn't have long to wait as long as Sasuke shows up soon. Sakura's in her room, it's just at the end of the hall." "Thanks," Naruto said, stepping inside and taking off his shoes. He followed the instructions as he got a look around. It was a lot better than his apartment. A lot bigger too, but that was no surprise. His place was on the cheap side of things and was meant for one person. You could tell this was a family home. Knocked on the door. "Come in," he heard Sakura say before he stepped inside. The pink-haired girl was lying on her bed, reading one of her books. "Hey, Naruto, glad you could make it," she said as she swung around and sat up on the bed. "Well, not like anyone would say no to free food, right? Nice place you guys have, by the way." "Thanks, only home I've ever had," Sakura replied as Naruto walked over to a nearby desk and pulled out the chair. He sat down backward and rested his arms and head on the back. Naruto looked over and saw several books that had depictions of the body or flowers on them. "I see you've been working on some extra credit, huh?" Sakura rubbed the back of her head. "Well, it's interesting stuff. Honestly, I think I've found a new hobby." Naruto chuckled. "Same here. Never thought I'd find burying my nose in a book fun until I took up sealing jutsu." Sakura grinned and looked to the side. "Oh wow, Naruto's found joy in studying. I'll have to look outside, it could be raining fire." "Very funny," Naruto said dryly with squinted eyes before his lips turned upward. "You should have seen the look on Iruka-sensei's face when he caught me in the library." That got a laugh out of Sakura. "So, what kind of things did you have in mind?" "Well, I thought maybe we could look at each other's skills and see if we could come up with some suggestions. You know everyone has their own way of thinking, maybe we missed something." She began to tick off her other ideas on her fingers. "We could look at ways to combine our skills and work out ways to share information. Maybe give each other some advice and training." It was then that there was a knock on the door, drawing both of their attentions. Doors open. The door opened to reveal Sasuke with one hand in his pocket, the same look on his face as ever. Still, that he was actually here said a lot. "Sasuke." Sakura smiled widely. "Well, look who finally decided to show up," Naruto said in greeting. The Uchiha just nodded and grunted in reply, stepping into the room and leaning against the wall. "Sakura and I were just talking about what she had in mind after dinner. She's got some pretty good ideas." Seeing Sasuke's questioning look, she repeated what she told him. Sasuke nodded. "Yeah, I can see how we can benefit from that. Good thinking, Sakura." The pink-haired girl beamed at his praise. "Dinner's ready," they heard Mibuyuki call out. Naruto wondered if this was what family dinners were always like. Kizashi guffawed at the many jokes he made, several of which had Naruto laughing as well as his daughter grumbled in exasperation, while his wife occasionally chided him. Sasuke was quiet as usual, rarely speaking unless spoken to. It was nice. Warm in a way he could only remember from birthday parties or his times at Ichiraku's. The food was great too. Mibuyuki had cooked a full-course meal. Steaming bowls of vegetables, a heaping bowl of rice, nori, miso soup, and grilled fish lay spread out at the center of the table. He could count on one hand the times he'd actually seen a full-course meal in front of him like this. "Great food, Mibuyuki. Thanks again for having us over," Naruto said after swallowing a mouthful. "Thank you for the compliment, you know, it's strange," Mibuyuki admitted as she looked at Naruto. "It never occurred to me that you were actually a member of the Uzumaki clan." "Same here. Members of the Uzumaki clan are so rare these days, I guess I just assumed." Kizashi chuckled sheepishly. "And well, you know what they say about that." Naruto looked at them hopefully, eager to hear more about his lost family. "Did you know anyone from my clan?" Mibuyuki shook her head. "Sorry, the only ones I knew of were only by reputation." Kizashi nodded in agreement beside her, much to the blonde's disappointment. He had really hoped to hear more about his mother from someone who grew up alongside her. "So, do you three have any dreams or aspirations?" Sakura's mother asked, drawing their attention. "A lot of genin just look to get by, trust me, that won't get you far." The way she said that said she was probably speaking from experience. Naruto smiled proudly and put his fist to his chest. "Well, my dream is to become Hokage. I want to be the guy everyone in the village looks up to." Kizashi snorted and smiled, shaking his head. "Hokage, huh? Well, there's something to be said about dreaming big. Well, you've got a long road ahead of you, but nothing worth doing is easy as they say." Mibuyuki turned to her daughter. "Have you given any thought to your future?" My future?" Sakura's eyes darted back and forth, finally landing on Sasuke before bashfully looking away with a blush. "Well, I mean, my dream is." "I see that hasn't changed," Naruto noted flatly. "But aside from that," Sakura then continued. "Two don't know. I want to be a great kunoichi someday and I think I'd like learning to be a medic nin," but she shrugged. "I can't think of any real goals specifically." Mibuyuki smiled in approval. "That's fine. You're just starting your career. It's no surprise you don't know what you want to do yet. I'm sure it'll come to you once you've gone out and experienced enough." She then turned to the Uchiha survivor. "And Sasuke?" The Uchiha looked at her for a moment before his eyes narrowed in determination. "I've only ever had two things I wanted: to restore my clan. And avenge it." Kizashi looked at him seriously while Mibuyuki nodded and closed her eyes. "I thought as much, it's understandable after what happened." Yeah, Naruto could somewhat understand why Sasuke wanted to restore his clan. He hadn't even known his own family, but he pined for them, mourned what had been lost, and wished to make them proud, both his parents and his clan. He couldn't imagine what it would be like to have all that, to have such an enormous family and lose them. Though he couldn't say that he agreed with how Sasuke had closed himself off from everyone. He hated being alone, and Sasuke had had so many people who wanted to be there for him, but maybe that was part of the problem. That, for all that they wanted to help him, they couldn't understand how he felt, and he knew it. I'm not going to say I understand or try to tell you how you should live your life, but listen, Miyuki said, regarding the Uchiha seriously. There are a lot of ninja out there who hold grudges and a lot of them end up dying young because they fly off the handle when they cross paths with the one they're after. I'm not telling you shouldn't want revenge or that there are more important things. That's for you to decide. Just don't go after him until you know you're ready, okay? Sasuke was quiet for a moment before he gave a quick HN. There was silence for a moment before Kizashi spoke up, so was that yes HN no HN or whatever HN. We need the context of the HN to fully understand and grasp the HN. Add. Miyuki watched as the two genin said goodbye to her daughter and made their way to the door later that night. She had to say she was glad she'd agreed to allow them over when Sakura had asked her. Honestly, it had been much too long since her daughter had last had friends over. Not since she'd broken off her friendship with Ino and let her crush on the Uchiha dominate her social life, in fact. And Naruto and Kizashi had never hated him like a lot of the village, but they'd been a bit wary. After hearing about what happened in Wave, they had decided to give the boy the benefit of the doubt. He seemed like a good kid. From what she'd seen and heard, he was the type who would stand by his teammates no matter what, and what more could she want for her daughter's teammate? She couldn't help but worry about Sasuke, though. As she said, his behavior was perfectly understandable, given what he'd been through. But it was far from healthy. She could only hope his teammates could pull him out from the dark cloud that had been hanging over him. Remind him that he didn't have to go it alone, and they seemed to be doing a good job of that so far. Thank you for having us over, Sasuke said with a nod. Well, the boy may not show much respect these days, but at least he still knew how to show gratitude. Yeah, I had a great time. And I think it helped us a lot. Naruto said with cheer, his hands behind his head. Well, you two are welcome to come and visit whenever you want, just try to give us a heads up, alright? Sure thing, Miyuki. She smiled and nodded before looking between the two. And listen. I know that the two of you live on your own, and that isn't easy. I'm not going to pretend I understand what your situations are like, but if you ever feel the need to talk about something, my husband and I are here. It's the least we can do for Sakura's teammates. Naruto blinked before smiling again. You got it. Thanks a lot, really. Have a good night. She nodded. Same to both of you. Sasuke just grunted in response. She watched as the two walked off. Yes, this had been a good idea that her daughter had. She hoped that they took her up on that offer. It wasn't like they could fill the gap left by their parents, but she wanted to offer them what support she could. Children shouldn't grow up alone. At night, Sasuke stepped out of his bathroom, the night's events running through his head as he finished readying for bed. It had been a pleasant experience, he couldn't lie. They'd been pretty productive. Some of it they'd have to bring up with Kakashi, but they'd walked away with new ideas on how they could develop and combine their skills. Naruto had made an offer with his sealing jutsu that he could see a lot of potential in. And he had to admit he was glad to see Sakura turning over a new leaf. She'd also backed off on fawning over him, something he was infinitely grateful for. Honestly, it annoyed him to no end how the girls of his class would hang off him, even when they barely knew him. Not to mention how most of them sacrificed their fighting skills to maintain their looks just to try and get his attention. Just stupid. What kind of life did they think they were signing up for? Well, at least she wasn't that way anymore. Much as he didn't want to rely on others, he had to admit she was becoming someone he wouldn't mind standing alongside. And the same went for Naruto. Though there had been hints of that as far back as their first encounter with Zabuza. When he had been assigned to a team, he had wished that he could just become the sole apprentice of a skilled jonin. Get around all the grunt work and become as powerful as possible as fast as he could. He had a long way to go to catch up to him. But this actually wasn't so bad. As he got to his bed, he looked at his nightstand. At the picture of his team on the day they officially passed. He thought of Sakura's earnest efforts to change. The few times they'd gone to Ichiraku Ramen at Naruto's behest. He smiled. Another day, another D-rank missionman, I can't wait to put these behind me, Naruto grumbled, crossing his arms as he and his team walked down the street after yet another mission that may as well be a chore. Weeks had passed since their first after-training get-together. It had become a somewhat regular thing for them, though they didn't always meet at Sakura's home. Something that Naruto was glad he'd decided to tidy his place up all that time ago. New ideas had been shared between them, and with Kakashi's help, they'd managed to make some of their ideas work out. And, of course, they'd taken plenty of D-rank missions. Can't forget about that. Today they'd had to clean trash out of the river. That was a lot of fun. Do the words "be careful what you wish for" mean anything to you? Sakura asked with a raised brow. Do you want to get into another mess like the wave mission? I have to agree with Naruto on this one, Sasuke admitted. We could be out getting real experience, but we're wasting time with these stupid chores instead. B-rank missions exist for a reason, you know, Kakashi spoke up, getting their attention from his place at the rear of their group. They turned to find that he once again had his nose in that orange book of his. For one thing, they're meant to teach some humility to genin who think they're ready to take on the world just because they graduated. He looked pointedly at all three, and Naruto could only chuckle and sheepishly rub the back of his head. Yeah, they'd all thought that in one form or another, before wave anyway. They also help your sensei get a better idea of your synergy before they take you into real combat. And you get a bit of spare change, not that you three need thoughty hope. Yeah, he didn't know about his teammates, but that money Kakashi had given them had really been burning a hole in his pocket. He thought of all the things he could buy with the tons of ramen, a better home, and Newt, but the blonde got the feeling his sensei would be disappointed if he did any of that. Besides, the stuff he had now had worked well enough. He had splurged a bit on ramen, gotten some mesh armor that he wore beneath his shirt, and stocked up on weapons and on ink and sealing supplies, but not much else. Just getting them some quality training gear had demolished Sakura's savings. That gave him second thoughts on what he should be spending his money on. Well anyway, I have to go make my report on today's mission, so that's it for today, their sensei said. Feel free to do some independent training, as always. You should know your limitations by now. And with that, he was gone. Vanishing in a burst of speed. Naruto turned back to his teammates with his hands behind his head. So, you guys want to grab a bite, or he then heard a sort of hollow scratching behind him. He didn't even have to look, he knew what it was. They'd tried this before. He saw Sasuke and Sakura looking at something on the ground behind him with either minor annoyance or incredulity. Yep, just like he thought. Actually, I think I'm gonna take off and do some training by myself. Later. And then he formed a hand sign and disappeared as his sensei had. Unlike his teacher, he just leaped behind the nearby fence. Quietly, he walked back a few feet, hearing faint whispers and sounds of disappointment on the other side, before he silently climbed over the wooden barricade. Just like he thought, there on the ground was really. Naruto jumped down, channeling chakra to cushion his footfalls, took a few steps forward, and lifted up the cardboard box that had been painted to look like a rock. Three voices exclaimed in shock as he held their disguise above them and looked down at them flatly. A square rock. Seriously? Maybe try a fake wall or the transformation jutsu next time. Ah, you saw through us without even looking. That's the man I view as my rival. Konohamaru said, crossing his arms and trying to look tough in front of his two friends. The blonde grinned as he set the box on the ground. Hey Konohamaru. You guys been working hard, I trust. And what's with the goggles, are you trying to copy me? Yep. Nice touch, huh boss? Konohamaru said, shifting the goggles on his forehead with a wide grin. Naruto shrugged. What do you mean, eh? I just wore those as a placeholder for when I'd get my forehead protector, you know. Naruto replied before he grinned again. But they work for you just fine. Just remember that's what you're aiming for when you've got them on, okay? Konohamaru's eyes lit up before he nodded excitedly. Are you free today? You said you'd play ninja with us. The girl beside Konohamaru spoke up. A ninja playing ninja? Sasuke asked flatly. Hey, how else am I supposed to help them out? They're a bit too young for our kind of training, you know. Naruto said back. Sakura thought about it before nodding. Fair enough. So, who are these three anyway? Ah, let me introduce you. Naruto gestured towards the still silent boy. This is Uden. Then to the girl smiling shyly at them. That's Mogi. He then pointed to their leader, who stood as tall and proud as he could. And that's Konohamaru. He's the old man's grandson. Sakura's brows shot up. The old man. She then reeled in shock, looking between the blonde and his protege. Wait, you mean the third Hokage? Yuhe. Big surprise, right? But don't think that makes him special, he's just like any other little kid. Hey. But Naruto began before looking at the younger boy. He's the guy who's going to be the Hokage after me. As long as he doesn't slack off. He smiled confidently. Right. Right boss, Konohamaru raised his fist into the air. Naruto chuckled before looking at his teammates with a deadpan expression and waving dismissively. Seriously, though, don't give him any special treatment, he hates it. Surprisingly, Sasuke nodded and looked at the boy appraisingly. Tired of living in your grandfather's shadow, huh? Konohamaru blinked at him. Yeah, I'm and everyone always looks at me as just the Hokage's grandson until them at least. He said, looking at his friends and then at Naruto before returning his gaze to Sasuke. I want people to acknowledge me as my own person, and the boss told me that means I have to work hard until I can stand on my own 2 feet. Until I've made a name for myself. Sasuke nodded and closed his eyes. Well, it sounds like Naruto gave you good advice. Listen to him and you'll get there someday. Huh. Sasuke had been less cold lately, but Naruto couldn't say he expected outright words of encouragement from him. Never mind the compliment. Konohamaru seemed surprised too before he grinned widely. Naruto smiled. Well, thanks for the support, Sasuke. He then gestured towards the Uchiha and the pink-haired girl. And these are my teammates, Sakura Haruno and Sasuke Uchiha. You just missed our sensei, Kakashi. Oh, so you're the boss's teammates. Nice to meet you. Konohamaru said. Naruto smiled as he watched the younger kids run over to his teammates, but then his eyes trained on 2 people walking towards them from further down the alleyway. A blonde girl with her hair in pigtails carrying a giant fan on her back and a hooded boy in all black with purple face paint. And both had forehead protectors with another village's symbol. Sunagakur, if he remembered right. It wasn't long before the others turned to look at them too. Huh, what do we have here? The boy asked. His eyes squinted and seemingly closed, but his head turned to look at the discarded box. A couple of kids playing ninja. When Sasuke asked that, it was a question. This boy's tone, however, was mocking. Talking down to them. Yep, this guy wanted to start something. He wasn't about to take someone making a jab at his friends lying down. Well, what else are they going to do when they're in the academy? Naruto shot back. And they might be playing ninja, but at least they're not playing dress up. Does your mom know you raided her makeup supply? The blonde girl and Sakura giggled. Konohamaru and his gang burst out laughing while the boy snarled. It's war paint. Asshole. Yeah? I didn't know war paint came in bright purple. The boy growled, raising a fist while the girl at his side sighed. How many times have I told you to lay off the face paint? No one else in our village dresses like that. Damn it, Temari. Whose side are you on? Temari, huh? Naruto asked as he turned to the girl, putting his hands behind his head. I take it you guys are here for the Chunin exams. That's right, Temari replied with a nod. Well, I'd give you guys a real Konoha greeting, but I think your teammates already worn out his welcome. You guys already know where to go. Sasuke spoke up. If so, then I suggest you take that one and beat it. He jerked his head at the boy in face paint. Oh, a couple of tough guys I see in that case. Tenkuro, back off. All eyes were drawn to a nearby tree. There, hanging upside down, was a boy with short spiky auburn hair with a tan gourd at his back that was nearly as big as he was. Oddly, the kanji for love had been tattooed on the side of his forehead. He stood with his arms crossed, his face utterly apathetic as his cold green eyes gazing down at the black-clad boy. Taking in his teammates' reaction, he realized none of them had even noticed his presence. Beads of sweat broke out over Kankuro and Temari's foreheads as they stared up at the newcomer. A single glance was all that was needed to know that they were afraid. The face-painted boy plastered a smile on his face, trying to accommodate the other Sand Genin. You're embarrassing our village. The boy continued. You ubbit they started. Shut up, or I'll kill you. Tenkuro trembled. While the new kid didn't show any malice beyond the empty gaze he gave his apparent teammate, his reaction made it clear that he believed he'd do it without a moment's thought. That put him on edge. Sure, the kid was a jerk, but to be intimidated by his own teammate. The boy vanished from his spot in a swirl of sand before reappearing in between his teammates. My apologies for my teammates' behavior. We may have gotten here early, but that's no excuse to play around. He then turned and began to walk away. Let's go. Hang on, Naruto said, getting their attention. They all turned to face him. I got your teammates' names, but not yours. Ara of the desert. The red-haired boy answered. And you three. I assume you'll be at the exams too. Naruto shrugged. Dunno. The application's today, and our sensei's been tight-lipped about it. Ara nodded before looking at the three appraisingly. What are your names, in case you do participate? Naruto smirked confidently. Naruto Uzumaki. Sasuke did the same. Sasuke Uchiha. Sakura, on the other hand, just frowned. Sakura Haruno. The Sand Genin nodded and walked away with his teammates. What was that about? Sakura asked as she stepped forward. You want to fight him or something? Hinda, Naruto said, frowning at their retreating forms. He seems strong, and I'm always up for a good fight, but something about how his teammates acted around him rubs me the wrong way. Well, at least we know it won't be boring, Sasuke said. All in all, gate guarding duty was one of the dullest things one could pull. The man currently guarding the village's main entrance couldn't help but think. Sure, some thought boring was good, especially when exciting could mean you're risking life and limb, but most would agree that this was one of the worst jobs you could pull short of catching Tor the cat. Sure, there'd usually be a steady trickle of people coming in and out of the village, but it's not like you were a bartender. You'd usually share 2 or 3 sentences and then send them on their way. And spend all the rest of your time watching the clouds go by. Wow, this place is huge. A young female voice caught his attention. Walking down the road was a group of 4, the forehead protectors they wore marked them as shinobi of Taki. Earlier exam takers, he saw. The sole girl in the group, a young genin with green hair, ran ahead. Her eyes were alight with excitement and she wore a smile on her face as she looked up at the gates and the Hokage monument beyond. I can't wait to go sightseeing. This is going to be so much fun. One of the boys sighed. There she goes again, 5th time since we left. The Jonin just shook his head. Just let it go, at least she's not running off into the wilderness this time. Worst comes the worst, we can find her in the village. The girl just laughed as she ran towards the gate. Chapter end. Alright, that's it for today's video guys, let me know in the comments section how was the story and also don't forget to like, share and subscribe. I will meet you in another video, peace out.